What's going on, guys? Ivy here and you're watching new episode of Metal Mixing Guide. I'm really sorry for such a big delay between videos. For those who wonder, I've explained it all in a Patreon post several days ago, so you can read that if you want. Link will be in the description. So for this episode we're about to go for our Architect's Tone from the album All Our Gods Have Abandoned Us. Before we will start, I'd like to give big ass shout out to Sar Sadikov, who helped me with guitar recordings and also allowed me to use part of his arrangement for this video. As a payback, I produced his new cover to the most recent Architect's song. You can check it out by following link in the description as well. Under that video you'll find the info about recording chain, like used guitar, strings, audio interface and all that. I really appreciate the effort of this guy. It's really worth to check out his stuff, maybe pay some respects, subscribe to his channel and so on. Anyways, with all that being said, let me show you how this thing is done. So just as always we're gonna start from rhythm guitars. Every single element of this mix is going to be processed in a separate project, so basically by the end of the day we will get pack of stems to work with. I always tell about benefits of this method, like having more control and precision on every element. No need to say that it allows us to use extremely low buffer sizes when it comes to recording without any need to bypass all the shit. Now to be honest with you guys, that's total bullshit. Y'all know that I like to use pretty complex processing chains, right? Like overcomplicating stuff and shit, so you probably understand that if I'd put all this stuff in only one project my CPU would become hot enough to cause series of catastrophic events. Y'all know the Big Bang Theory, right? People used to complain about possible causes of that shit. Well, I'm sure that the real cause of that is some dude in the past just decided to do the same one project type of shit with buffer size of only 1 millisecond, and I'm not fucking with that. Anyways, let's check out the tone. So what we're gonna work with is this quadro track represented by two different tone models, A and B. It really comes to difference in amp settings and impulses. Check this out. Let's start from GTRA. So in the first place we have Revolver 4 with my custom preset. Then, custom cabinet impulse. Just as always, all that custom kind of shit will be available in the additional files pack for this guide. And multi-bin compressor right after, just to get some control on low mids popping out during palm mutes. Pretty subtle thing. Same thing goes for GTRB. Different preset in Revolver 4. And different cab impulse. %, panning for left and right channels, and for whatever reason I used lower level for GTRA. Now these 4 tracks go to guitar's bus. Another C4 here, This time it affects entire pack of guitars with slide control on low end, just to pack it up little more. Stereo imager widens our shit up a little level correction also. Send to reverb bus from here, speaking of which by the way. So this is pretty much what we gonna use, but just to give you more options I've made this additional GTRC model. This one is consolidated tone of A and B channels, so if you don't want to use quadro tracking, just go for double and use pair of GTRC instead. Another preset for reverb. And another impulse. Hard panning, little level correction. Routing to separate bus. C4 remains the same as it was, but I used different settings for measure, just to mimic wideness of quadro track sounding. Same kind of send to reverb. Now, before we can start the export, be sure to use at least 0.2 seconds length on impulses to have it super clean. Solo proper bus to avoid of stacking up sends to reverb. In our case it's gonna be main quadro track bus. Set up them locator shits, open up the bounce window, and do the shit in multi-out mode from guitars bus and reverb. Time for clean guitars. Don't mind me for using 2 tracks here. Originally it's supposed to be single track, but I found that arrangement was sort of overfilled in the middle, so I decided to spread the shit out to the side of stereo image. That's why we gonna use double track. At this point I'm not gonna use panning just yet, so we will only go for one guitar. Check this out. First element in chain is revolver, fourth where I got my basic tone. Originally it was compressed and echoed factory preset, but I'm not sure if I didn't change some shit here. EQ right after, just to filter out some unwanted stuff. 2 C4 compressors with pretty smooth control on different parts of spectrum, just to be sure that guitars won't jump out of the shit too much. Correction impulse at the end of the chain. This thing is located in post-fader zone. Later I'll explain why this is important. Now this track has pre-fader sends to clean shimmer and clean delay FX channels. So on clean delay track we have H delay with some sort of tape flavor. C4 with extremely light and rare touches on dynamics. Most of the time it's gonna be inactive, but in some super rare cases it will reduce outstanding delay feedback and maintain the balance between channels. Same correction impulse at the end in post fader zone, though position of this one is not really important. Clean shimmer is basically the same thing, just using Valhalla shimmer instead of delay. Same C4 for same purposes. And same correction impulse in post fader zone. So what's the point of this post-fader pre-fader stuff? This correction impulse is basically matching EQ which I used on clean guitar bus on early stages of production, so entire sum of 3 elements was affected by this thing. I wanted to unlink the channels and keep this correction at the same time, so here is what's going on. When we send signals from clean GTR track, it will ignore everything in post-fader zone, because we use pre-fader sends. Otherwise this post-correction thing wouldn't make much sense, it could appear as pre-FX correction for FX buses. Now we can have it all equally affected by same spectral correction. Here's the levels I used. So, it's time to export the shit. We're gonna do it 2 times, separate export for each pack of guitars, set up them locator shits. I suggest to put end locator much further of the actual ending of audio, so effects won't be cut off and have enough time to decay. Now mute one track so sends from them shits won't stack in FX channels. Use multi bounce mode and select unmuted guitar track plus 2 FX tracks. Then go back in the mix, switch muting to other track, don't forget to switch bounce markers to new guitar as well. Time for ambient guitar. As you can see it looks extremely easy. So let's start with GTR track, so you can get the idea of what's going on here. First plugin and chain is Revolver 4 with preset based on the one called Clean, belongs to factory Michael preset folder. Some filtering right after to get rid of unwanted whistle. Shimmer reverb in mono mode, full mix amount. Pretty extreme stereo enhancement. Post correction impulse. And C4 with pretty extreme multiband reduction, mostly for mids and highs. So this is basically what I ended up with. There was two problems with this thing. First, I didn't like the way it sounded in my mix, so I did some crazy shit on top. And second one, unpredictable response time from Shimmer Reverb. Let me turn on the metronome and play this shit. Hope you will notice that some notes clearly go off the grid. I'm not sure why this happens, seems like each playback is gonna be random, so there is no point to create pre-delay, it's not gonna help. What I did to solve the off-tempo problem is post-editing. Here I separated them notes in time and bounced the shit to next track called cut. Basically I did some editing to create proper crossovers between them notes. This dark blue color is unwanted decay of shimmer, we won't need this stuff. Purple colored parts are about quarter note in length, contains early responsive shimmer, not gonna use these as well. Blue parts is something what we gonna use to rearrange the tracking back to how it's supposed to be, so I copied blue ones to this rearranged track, put them all together in correct sequence and applied short crossfades to be sure that phase transitions won't give us clicks and that kind of stuff. Here I used H-delay to smudge crossfade points and make it little less obvious. Little EQ right after to get rid of one resonance triggered by some notes. You can see that now I copied this entire pack of takes back in time, so it's synchronized with original take. And now I bounce the shit once again, just to put it to this very last track for last export. This processing chain is something that will put the shit to the right place in the mix. Check this out. First thing is EQ correction to get rid of unwanted stuff. Additional stereo enhancer to make it little whiter. Limiter will give us some sort of damaged sounding. At this point I also used it as a gain staging thing. Last EQ to make the shit super clean. And yeah, I also did some more editing, replace very start of the track because I forgot about quarter note offsets earlier, don't mind me. Now we can export the stem. Use single channel bounds from this track markered for export. Bass guitar. Even though it may seem complicated, processing of this project is pretty short and simple. First thing is the sampler. Contact 5 in 8 out mode. Here I use my custom bass library, more specifically, Update Patch Automatic 6. This means that notes will be automatically chosen with priority for 6th string, and unlike the main library, we don't have to write key switch patterns. This library is completely free. You can download it following link to promo video in the description. There you can also learn more about how it works and get some free signature tones as well. Down below you will also find another link to MMG23 where I explained what those automatic patches are. Anyways, as I said, I use Automatic 6. Output configuration and patches will be in the additional files for this guide in case if you need it. Speaking of MIDI programming, I use 123 velocity, which is basically just regular downstrokes. Hard downstrokes at the end with velocity level of 127. On top of that I used noise with 100 velocity level, just to link them notes together a little more and get more kind of natural performance. Now let's go for routing. I use all 4 output channels of Contact. First one only have notes from 6th string, another one is for 5th string, next out is 4th string plus all the others, last output is just for noise. All these channels then go to Chrono's sum bus, so different strings will sum back to one track with bus processing on top. And now this bus will go to main reamping bus. Everything before that is just DI correction and little touches to get control on performance. So first thing I did is correction impulses for 6th and 4th string channels. Purpose of those is to eliminate spectral difference between strings. It will all sound like 5th string cause this is what I use as a reference, and that's why we don't use correction on 5th string. Then I use multiband compressors for 6th and 4th, just to get control on outstanding lower mid-range and keep reamping processing from being dirty on lows. Same compression for 5th string, but here I also used 1st band to get more control on lows and 4th band to expand high end. 4th string also seemed to have additional EQ to get rid of unwanted lows. It sounded sort of muddy. In this case we don't really use 4th string, so let's loop short fragment containing both 5th and 6th to check out the difference. Now all 4 tracks go to Chrono's sum bus with overall DI correction in the first place. Some multiband compression right after, just to glue things together. And another one will compress first 2 bands and expand 3rd and 4th to really emphasize the attack of strings. Now it goes to reamping bus. Here we use our 47 pedal in the first place. our main source of distortion. SHB1 head right after. And then I use complex multi-step tone correction with integrated elements. First impulse will give us basic impression of a cabinet. Then I use some tube saturation. Second passive correction, little closer to the final result. Multiband compressor to get control on lows and lower mids, gain adjustments all over the spectrum and overall raise in volume on output. Another multiband compressor with different character. And last correction impulse to finish tone building routine. If you want to get higher amounts of drive, just use level automation of Chrono's Sum Bus. I don't suggest to go lower than -10 if you don't want to get clean tone, so I'd recommend to avoid very low levels. Still you can get little higher to -3 and get pretty rich distortion. There is also center reverb from this bus. Here is the settings. And here is the levels, routing and all the shit in case if I missed something. Now we can set up locators and start batch export from bass bus and reverb track. But before you do that, don't forget to adjust impulse lengths to at least 0.15 seconds. Also use oversampling wherever it's possible. Next stop, drums project. Check that shit. So this one is gonna be the biggest one. Let me briefly explain what's going on here. Just as always I use Superior Drummer 2 as a main kit, and because I use it in multi-out mode, I decided to add those output markers to each channel, so you can figure out the routing. We also use 2 triggers for kick using SSD4. 2 SSD4 triggers for snare, plus the snare bulb trigger with Superior's avatar library. All kicks and snares are routed to self-titled buses, which then all go to drums bus. Parallel compression and hi-hat channels together with reverb channel are routed to drums bus. Both rack and floor toms are routed to toms bus, which goes to drums bus then. Overheads and 2 room channels are routed to overheads bus, which is routed to drums bus as well. Let's save some time with samplers settings. Instead, I'll just put them shits into additional files pack. There you will also find custom drum map written for this kit with all articulations and shit. Speaking of MIDI programming, I pretty much use 127 velocity everywhere except for kick triggers. I'm talking about alteration between 127 velocity for even hits and something around 95 for uneven. It helps to get greater variety of used samples and have little more dynamics in the shit. So let's start from kick. Superior's kick is processed with this EQ, just to get little more scooped and powerful sounding. Kick ambience. getting rid of them weak ass mids. Kick 10 NRG, getting rid of them whistly noises on highs. And finally kick DWWS22, made it much softer with this EQ. By the way, phase of this channel is inverted in order to get proper sum of attacks with other kicks. So all them shit sums up here on kick bus. First element is NLS channel. Navo 6, 5.4 on drive. CLA 76 in Blue E mode, compression is turned off, so we only use this module for subtle saturation. Correction impulse with pretty massive interruption to the tone. Second CLA 76, this time we actually use it as a compressor with about 1 or 2 decibels of reduction. Multiband compressor with automatic gain control, helps to pack them samples together really well. Additional EQ to clean up the tone even more. From this point we have 3 pre-fader sends, so sended signal will ignore bus level and both 7 and 8 inserts. We have sends to parallel compression channel to get some tight attack, send to reverb and also sidechain send to this far ambience channel because I didn't really like how that kick bleed sounds. Let's go further. Our bass exciter to get little more of that low end, reduced output to avoid clipping. This plugin is sensitive to that shit. And right after, we fine-tune them lows and clean up the spectrum on highs once again. That's it for kick, let's go for snare now. Snare top. So here we have much more complicated EQ shifts, all for tone replication purposes. C4 compressor. This one will expand attacks of everything except for second band, that one is used to compress some nasty mids. CLA76 with about 1 decibel of gain reduction, just to get some more control on dynamics when it comes to low velocity hit rolls. And finally EQ shape to form proper sonic outcome and get rid of unwanted whistles from cymbals bleed. Snare bottom. Here we are getting rid of unwanted lows and mids, not really important stuff for bottom mic. Same CLA76, this one stays untriggered. I only use it to avoid phase problems between top and bottom mic, even though I didn't check the phase, so why do I even care about this? Last, cleaning EQ for the same purposes. Snare room. Notching out some nasty mids. Snare bulb. If you are watching this, you probably familiar with this one. I believe this variation belongs to MMG number 20 or something like that. So cleaning EQ at the beginning. Proceed with about 1 decibel of gain reduction to emphasize the attack just a bit. Second, EQ with more transparent shape. Multiband compressor for advanced dynamic control of lows and highs, so we only use first and last band. Plus I got some more headroom by bringing the input of plugin down by 10 decibels, of course compensated that with equal gain adjustment on output. Another complicated EQ shape. Here I also used output panning to reduce stereo wideness of snare, also used output gain controller for whatever reason. CLA76 with factory snare preset, getting even more compression from this one. And finally, correction impulse, contains massive amounts of EQ movements in order to get proper tone. Snare 6.5. notching out resonance around 1 kHz. And then I make it much shorter with SPL Transient Designer, so we use this one as a minor adjustment of attack for total snare sum. Snare ACSSD is even more minor thing. No processing at all, we use it to get slightly fuller sounding and greater variety of samples. Now it all sums up on snare bus. Check this shit. So first thing in chain is this small EQ shape to get rid of unwanted high end, 2 resonating zones, and we also boost them lows to get more power. Proceed with about 1 decibel of gain reduction, pretty subtle compression here. Second tone forming EQ, notching out even more stuff. NLS to get some drive and glue our shit together some more. Spike 5, drive on 1.4. Limiter for control of dynamics and little RMS adjustment. Basically control of dynamics is not really the case, because we will have some more EQ on top of that, which will expand our peak levels, but still it won't pass the level of -2, so we're pretty much safe. Cleaning EQ with little gain compensation. And then I used another EQ to fine-tune the presence of mids. Same kind of pre-fader sends to parallel compressor and reverb. Now parallel compressor channel, I can't really demonstrate it because of the way how Cubase's routing works, so we will check out this channel in its pure form on next stage. First thing here is gate to cut off unwanted cymbal bleed, so we only have kick and snare hits to be processed. H-comp with tight kit preset to get some really nice attack and punch. Pair of cleaning equalizers right after. Hi-hat. Current arrangement doesn't seem to have this one, so let me switch to this other part in order to demonstrate it. We will have half of presence of our hi-hat from overheads and room channels, so I wanted to make this channel like extra polished in order to get cleaner sounding. So this simple EQ shape is the beginning of chain. You know, pretty subtle stuff. NLS for some distortion. Navo 7, gain at 9. And right after I use Pro C to squash the attack of hi-hat. Send to reverb. Rag toms. Correction impulse in the first place. Includes massive amounts of equalization in order to get proper tone. H-comp with fine-tuned fat kick preset for fat tone reasons, helps to get little more power out of this. Pretty much the same goes for floor toms. different correction impulse in the first place. H comp right after. On Tom's bus I used Bus Compressor by T-Rex with settings based on this factory preset. It will glue toms together and make it more powerful in the mix. Limiter at the end to get control on peak dynamics. Send to reverb. Overheads. First thing is C4 where we only use first band in order to control low and bleed. Correction impulse. SSL compressor barely works on cymbals, mostly reacts to snare and tom hits, helps to put them hits deeper in mix. And NLS at the end. Navo 2, drive at 10.5. Ambience close. Correction impulse. NLS with Navo 1 on board, drive at 11.4. Ambience bar. This channel is processed more in a common room crushing manner. Check this shit. Our first movement is CLA 76 in all mode to get that solid compression and distortion. Correction impulse. NLS, Navo 4 with maximum drive. And Pro C controlled by kick. I'm not sure why I chose to use this one here, seems to be pretty subtle but I guess there was a reason for that. And now these three channels go to overheads bus with no any processing on it. And here is what's going on with reverb. First thing is cleaning EQ, in order to get rid of fizzy bleed and 2 resonances on mids. We don't really need that stuff to be processed with reverb. Now reverb itself. Second, cleaning EQ, which will help to integrate this space to our mix. Here you can see them levels and routing settings. Now we're ready for the export. So first of all, be sure that you fed chosen MIDI to Superior at least 7 or 8 times. Don't forget that we use catch mode in order to avoid RAM overloading. So we must play back this entire pack of notes several times to be sure that every used sample together with its random alterations are all loaded. You don't really need to play back entire thing, it will take too much time, so use this clock type of cursor, shrink the MIDI and play that shit 7 or 8 times. I suggest to turn down the volume during the process. Now it's ready. Now you want to make sure that you use at least 0.15 seconds impulse lengths. Turn on them oversampling shits wherever it's possible. Set up export locators. Open up the export window. Choose batch export option and then choose all channels or buses marked with EXP. Then start the shit. Now it's time for the final part, stem processing and mastering. So at this point we use all of our prepared stems. You can see them right here on board. Post-processing is pretty minor, so let's check it out real quick. For kick I used this EQ with minor reduction of click-on highs. Then some of that reverb, just to glue them hits together a little more, and multi-bin compressor for control of attack on highs. We only use last band together with minor level compensation on output. Pretty much all sends we're using in this project are sidechain sends. From this channel we drive compressors of Ambient Guitar, bass, and also compressors from first and third inserts on guitar's track. Same kind of reverb for snare, same purposes. Same sends to compressors from first and third inserts of guitar track. Low pass filter on toms. It seemed to have too much click in this case. No processing on hi-hat. Reduced highs on overheads, seem to be little noisy. Parallel compression. Here I used this cleaning EQ shape, so let's check out how this channel sounds in solo, together with other tracks, with and without equalization. By the way, I used 9 dB boost for very first hit to emphasize the attack of kick. No any processing on reverb. so all tracks related to drums are routed to self-titled bus. Here I used this kind of shape to fix some spectrum inaccuracies. C4 compressor to pack them shits together a little more. Final EQ with reduction of 2 kHz and little gain compensation. This bus then goes to Master 1 bus. Now guitar processing. Previously I mentioned sidechain compressors, so here they are. First one works only for center of stereo. And second one on third insert is the opposite thing, works only for side of the stereo. C4 in between, just to get some control for lows and low mids. No any processing on guitar reverb track, same goes for bass reverb. And when it comes to main bass track, we use the sidechain compressor. And this equalizer to fix one outstanding part of spectrum. Not a bad thing, but I felt like it's better to bring this zone down. Ambient Guitar. Same type of sidechain compression here. Next track is for noise. I used level automation to control the amount of this stuff, and Valhalla Uber mod with warm and warbly preset as a noise generator. It will help us to fill the mix little more. Final part is pack of clean guitars. We didn't use any panning and reamping project, so I did it all right here, check this out. We use same processing for first and second pack. For main clean track I used this compressor/expander in order to get proper cutting through the mix. Things may vary depending of what kind of guitar you used. And for shimmer track I notched out one unwanted resonance. So all these tracks which not related to drums are routed to Master 1 bus. Except for Uber noise, it goes straight to Master 2. Here you can see the levels and panning settings of project. Bus Master 1. Main purpose of processing on this stage is to glue everything together. So very first thing is input reduction in order to get enough headroom for NLS bus. -7 decibels, we will compensate it later. NLS bus in mic mode, drive at 2. Next thing, mid-side compressor, we only use first and second bands here. So for the middle part we control low end pressure of kick and bass, second band is mostly for snare. When it comes to side, first band will control total amount of side pressure from guitars, second band works mostly for outstanding palm mutes and toms. By the way, here I also used that headroom trick, so in the past it was -3.8 decibels on input, plus 3.8 on output. There was gain staging plugging right in front of this compressor, which compensated that -7 decibels drop on input. So with little calculations and maths I was able to delete gain staging plugin and recalculate incoming input here instead. Extremely subtle compression with T-Rax bus compressor, just about 1 decibel or something like that. And last multi-bin compressor. All bands except for the last one are working in parallel mode, just to get slightly fuller and richer sounding. Last band is for transient control purposes, so I used full mix amount. Now this bus goes to Master 2 for final processing. First element is isotope exciter in parallel mode. You can see that I use pretty subtle amounts of mix, just to add that extra tape drive swag. Then I use pair of mid-side equalizers, pretty minor tweaks. Isotope major for stereo correction according to reference. Little bit of reverb, just to add some overall ambience feeling. NLS drive in mic mode again, same gluing purposes. Because of the fact that level is already pretty high at this point, we only use 0.4 value of drive. Valhalla Uber mod with tweaked clapicizer preset. Again, we don't use much when it comes to mix amount. This thing will help us to fill the mix in a pretty interesting way. Same kind of effect can be found in low bitrate MP3. You probably won't hear any difference, because as I said, effect is very subtle. So let me solo side of the stereo and play back something related to mono so you can really hear what I'm trying to say. and limiter at the end. Transparent mode, plus 9.5 decibels on input, minus 0.2 on output. So that's pretty much it. And for those of you who want to get additional files pack, which includes full pack of Chronos patches, Cubase projects which I used in this video, full pack of impulses used in this guide, full pack of Pro Q presets, same pack of templates for Reaper, preset bank for Revolver 4, source DI and MIDI files together with pack of stems, presets for SSD4 and Superior Drummer with custom drum map for MIDI programming. You will find all of them shits in my private post on Patreon, which will be available after pledging $1. By doing this you will also get access for rest of my private content and help me keep doing what I do. Link is in the description. So hope you learned thing or two from this guide. See you next time.